lovers and silent thinkers. Thank you for tuning to LL3 Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy Medfield, South Florida. And today's date is Wednesday, December 23rd, 2020. Yes, it's here, a little static in the background. I'm at downtown Saloon, located at 10 South New River Drive in the heart of Fort Lauderdale, right by the New River, right behind courthouse, Broward Jail. In other words, southeast corner of the Andrews Avenue Bridge. So I'd like to always thank them for having me do my show. They don't mind one bit. They get a big kick out of me. Put up with me for all these years as well. But I'm going to do a couple of articles here I'm going to be talking about. And this one here came from the Epoch Times, and it's a reference to the economy. This one here is an article, Senator Rand Paul, direct payments to employed Americans is a socialist idea. This is by Masuma Haku. All right, hope I pronounced the person's name correctly. It says here, Republican Senator Rand Paul, Republican from Kentucky, said he disagrees with giving large direct payment checks to employed Americans because it's furthering socialist ideas, and that instead the payment should only go to those who are unemployed. It's really foolish, airheaded, left-wing socialist idea to pass out free money to people, so I part ways with the president on giving people free money, Paul told Fox News during a Wednesday interview, adding that those who are unemployed should be the focus on the stimulus checks. Congress passed a total of $2.3 trillion spending package on Monday, which included $600 in direct payments to American workers. On Tuesday night, President Donald Trump said that Congress needs to pass a pandemic stimulus bill that largely directs payments of $2,000 to individual workers and threatened to veto the bill as is. Congress found plenty of money for foreign countries, lobbyists, and special interests, Trump said on Tuesday night in a video released in his social media pages, while sending the bare minimum to the American people who need it. The president contrasts the $600 payments to the hundreds of millions of dollars earmarked for Egyptian military, Cambodia, Sudan, Burma, gender programs in Pakistan, and numerous other countries. Paul agreed with the president's criticism of spending millions overseas while doing little here at home. He was unhappy with all the spending to Pakistan and Sudan and all these far-flung places when we aren't taking care of our own, Paul said. It's what President Trump has always gotten right. It's why President Trump got all of these new blue-collar workers into our party, because they're sick and tired of sending money, shoveling it overseas, and they want it here at home, continued Paul. The Kentucky senator said that helping those hardest hit by the pandemic or those who have lost their jobs was more fiscally sound than sending money overseas and giving checks to those still employed. We can't build our own country because we're too busy rebuilding everybody else's. I think giving money to people who are already working, like my kids are working and don't need a check. They're not rich, but they don't need a check, and most working Americans don't need a check right now. Paul complained that Republicans are just as irresponsible overspending as Democrats. He said that giving free money is not the solution to helping America recover, pushing rather for the opening the economy and letting businesses and schools fully resume. They never take away wasteful spending, they only add more to it, said Paul. And the bottom line is the only way we recover as an economy is we got to open the economy up. And he's absolutely correct on that aspect. Okay, so, and I know even personally like myself in the stage industry, I use it for insurance purposes, but I don't live off this thing. Good grief. It's totally absurd. Reopen the economy, even the industry I'm in and hospitality and all that. A lot of people got affected by this really hard. We're just examples, and many others as well. There's people out there that have families to take care of. So like I said, my issue is only minor, thank goodness. But there's people with bigger burdens. And it's a real damn shame, this whole propaganda machine, okay, made COVID-19 a 24/7 excuse for everything. And like I said before, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, okay? That's not my forte, and I've been saying this enough times. Even my longtime listeners can attest to that. But with shutting all these areas down makes it a burden on everybody. The government needs a butt out, whether it's federal, state, or local. Butt out. Let them do their things, as long as they do everything in good faith. Let everyone start trying to prosper. And we can make our own decisions. And this is how I see this. It's like, hey, I don't want to be some number. No one, we're not numbers. That's part of our heritage. We're liberated individuals. But they want to put step by step by step by step by step, want us to further be dependent on. Look, remember, in this day in history, I forgot to bring this up. It's on 1913, the Federal Reserve Act was ratified and signed by President Woodrow Wilson. Okay, so more centralization. That's what they're trying to lead us down to. And it's totally unacceptable. So yeah, I will give a thumbs up for Senator Rand Paul on what he stands on this. So, and everyone else should look at the bigger picture. All right, well, I'll do one more here. Listen here, this one here came from Brandon Smith from the Bob Lewison's Alert. I know he got stuff. I know he writes for out-market.com. So it says here, how can free people fight back against forced vaccination programs? In 1905, the U.S. Supreme Court was presented with Jacobson versus Massachusetts, a case involving the subject of state-enforced smallpox vaccination. The defendant argued on the grounds of the 14th Amendment that his bodily liberty was being violated by the state if he was subjected to arbitrary vaccination without his consent. Weak is the 9th Amendment as well. All right. The state and the Supreme Court felt differently, of course. The Supreme Court ruled against Jacobson on the grounds that his refusal to take the vaccine put other people at risk. And for the common good, states have certain police powers that superseded personal liberties. I remember Stephen Geller brought this up. You know what? Just gotta and look at his posture. And I'm sorry about that. I don't like being insulted, folks. So I'll continue on here. Whenever liberty movement activists argue against forced vaccination on constitutional grounds, this is counter-argument that the government and statists will make. They will bring up Jacobson versus Massachusetts and then claim that it's the end of the discussion. It's a case law. It's an opinion. It's a case. It's an opinion, a viewpoint. Okay? Of course, the Supreme Court has been wrong many times in the past. In the Dred Scott case in 1834, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of slavery and the right of states to enforce the institution. Courts' propensity is to defend states' rights and the 10th Amendment when people's individuals' liberties are being quashed. But if the case involves state protecting citizens from federal intrusion, the court flips and attacks states' rights when they work in favor for individual liberty. For example, the federal government will run roughshod over citizens' rights and state power on drug use, gun rights, and property rights when it suits them. The 10th Amendment is outdated and states have no power beyond the federal government, they say. But they also find with the idea of states implementing body-violating forced vaccination programs in the name of the state power. Whatever is the federal government violating your constitutional rights or the state government violating your constitutional rights, the Supreme Court is often comfortable with both. So technically, they do have conditions on supporting involuntary servitude. 13th Amendment, right? However, this is not how the Constitution and the Bill of Rights work. It is not how it was intended to work. The bottom line in each term of the Bill of Rights is that each American citizen has inherited liberties that supersedes both state and federal and state power. These rights are inalienable or alienable. Inalienable. That's how they pronounced it back then. They cannot be violated today, and the law cannot adjust it to violate them tomorrow. These rights and freedoms are eternal. All right, the Supreme Court talks of the spirit of the Constitution, but ignores the clear and concrete intent as stated by the founders. Statists argue in favor of the living document philosophy when it suits them as a mean to change the original meaning of and laws put forth in the Bill of Rights, because that allows them to violate citizens' rights under the guise of legality. But legality is not the same as morality. Legality is meaningless, and the Supreme Court is meaningless if it acts against the Bill of Rights, as they did in the Dred Scott case. So if we cannot rely on legality to protect us from state tyranny, what can we rely on? Forced vaccine advocates will say that morality is on their side as well. For a person does not vaccinate, they are putting the rest of society at risk of infection. Therefore, your individual rights must be violated in order to protect the rights of the rest of society. The problem is that Jacobson versus Massachusetts makes no legal argument supporting this assertion, and neither do forced vaccine proponents. Look at it this way. How can a person that is not vaccinated harm people that are vaccinated? How are they putting those people at risk? If the vaccine actually works, then the vaccinated person are safe from any infection, aren't they? So the only person at risk is the person that chose not to vaccinate. This comes down to personal choice, and there's no question of the greater good or social risk. And that's true. Some vaccine advocates will then claim that unvaccinated people can be a host to mutations and threaten the herd immunity. The problem is that there is no evidence to support this argument. The vast majority of viruses tend to mutate into less deadly strains, not more deadly, unless they are deliberately designed or engineered to mutate in an unnatural manner. There is simply no basis for the position that an unvaccinated person puts vaccinated people in danger. If a virus is able to mutate into a vastly different and more deadly strain that can attack vaccinated persons, then the vaccinated was never useful to begin with, and forced vaccinations are pointless. The question we need to ponder are, how do the statists plan to enforce vaccinations, and what we can do about it? In terms of enforcement, we can examine what is happening in the countries like China for clues, along with open statements made by globalists and politicians on the issue. At the bottom, the elites intend to compel people to take the coronavirus vaccine using economic punishment. In China, the Communist government has issued rules denying citizens access to necessary services unless they submit to a viral screening on a regular basis. They must get what the establishment calls an immunity passport, which is tied to a QR code on their cell phones. Your cell phone becomes a 24/7 tracking device that is always in your pocket. You can't go anywhere or buy anything without the phone and the QR code carries. Therefore, you cannot avoid tracking unless you are refusing to participate in the economy. People are then hired by the government to work as contact tracers, neighborhood spies, and informants. These tracers seek out anyone who might be infected, report them to the authorities, and then look for any other people the infected individual might have come in contact with. I suspect that contact tracing will end up doing more to track down unvaccinated people and liberty people than actually looking for infected people. Beyond economic participation, there's also the question of the economic collapse. Clearly, the U.S. economy is in a downward spiral, and whatever rises from the ashes will be a much leaner and smaller version of what we once had. This means many people will likely become dependent on the government for aid, from welfare to food stamps to rations and handouts from FEMA. I have no doubt that the government will require you to get an immunity passport and eventually get vaccinated in order to receive this aid. If the U.S. starts reverting the UBI, or Universal Basic Income, in order to keep the population housed and fed, then vaccinations will be prerequisite. Some people will ask why we care about getting vaccinated at all. They will say it's harmless, and why are we worried about it? These people have no understanding of the history of vaccines and the dangers inherent in allowing governments controlled by globalists with a depopulation agenda to inject whatever they want into an individual's body. Beyond that fact, consider that the moment you allow the government power to inject you with whatever they please, you have given them ownership of your body. You are basically a slave. All your other rights go out the door once you accept these kinds of conditions. There are a few options to fighting back against this kind of medical tyranny, but they require organization and extreme change in the way most Americans think about day-to-day living. Here is the counter moves that we must be implemented if we are to defeat the technocratic agenda. Off the grid economy. As I have noted for several years now, the first step to defeat tyranny is not to rely on establishment-controlled systems. This means building your own economy based on barter, localized production, localized scrip, and precious metals for money, etc. You have to be able to provide for yourself what the mainstream system cannot or will not. If you have the means to grow your own food, collect your own water, supply your own shelter, assert your own defense, and build your own economic network, then you don't need the system, and the system has no leverage to control you other than direct threats of force. Organized community of like mind. If you have a community of like-minded liberty people around you, then you do not have to worry about contact tracers and informants. The wider your circle of liberty advocates, the more afraid sociopathic contact tracers will be to snitch on anyone. If you are alone as a liberty person in your community and you refuse to organize, don't count on help from others, and don't be surprised when someone rats you out. Constitutional law enforcement. If you have a constitutional sheriff or police officers in your area, then medical controls are less likely to be enforced. Good cops must be supported by the public. They are taking a risk for you, so you should be willing to take a risk for them. Unfortunately, there are circumstances where officers will simply follow any orders, no matter how immoral, and they may have to be compelled to obey the Constitution and their oaths. Hopefully, this will not be necessary, but without public pressure on law enforcement, they might assume that they have free rein to violate people's rights. Law enforcement personnel must understand that they have to live in the community too. Trying to oppress the people that live next door to them is a bad move. Liberty doctors. It is hard to say how immunity passports will be distributed, but if doctors are used as a middleman to determine if you qualify, as they are people most likely to administer vaccinations, then liberty doctors could give people immunity passports while secretly avoiding such vaccinations. This might be hard to sell for some. Many doctors are convinced of the safety of vaccines and will dismiss anti-vaccine arguments even when they are otherwise reasonable people. They believe they are helping. That said, I'm hearing more and more chatter about possibility of tens of thousands of medical professionals plan to refuse the COVID vaccine because of its lack of testing. If this is true, then these doctors and nurses are going to need our support and protection. They might listen to issues of individual freedom and the right to choose what is injected in your body. Doctors could be the key to protecting people from medical tyranny by subverting immunity passport laws. Get rid of your cell phone. Stop carrying a cell phone. Leave it at home or throw it away entirely. I don't carry one and never will, and I never survived just fine without it. Many of us grew up without them. Why do we need them now? Absolutely. A cell phone is a tracking and surveillance device. That is all it is. It collates your habits and collects your personal contacts. It is video monitoring device as well as listening device, GPS. Get rid of it. If you don't have a cell phone, then contact tracing and monitoring your habits will be much more difficult. Linking you to some kind of infection event will be impossible. Full-scale rebellion. There will come a point in which force will have to be met with force. The timing will be different depending on the people involved in the situation, but medical tyranny is unlikely to stop due to minor setbacks such as sabotage or falsified immunity passports alone. Governments will eventually come after free communities of people with the intent to subjugate or destroy. Rebellions are sometimes peaceful and sometimes they are not. Sometimes mass protests work and sometimes they don't. Ultimately, the elites will never stop trying to gain control over every living person until they are removed as a threat. The danger will continue forever unless the root of the problem is dealt with. These scenarios sound harsh, terrifying, and maybe over the top or unbelievable to some, but they are very real. We will be facing them sooner rather than later. Those that want to be free will be made into criminals by the mere preponderance of their existence. Frankly, some laws are meant to be broken. Exactly. Don't comply. Just nullify. That's how I look at it. The truth of the matter is, folks, even you can use the U.S. Bill of Rights, but in your state you do have Declaration and Bill of Rights in there as well. Focus on those areas. Try not to jump hoops and bypass the levels and go to the federal court. Because one thing that people forget to do, they have a habit of relying on the incorporation doctrine. It happens to all of us too, don't get me wrong. We've got to start on a local level, ground up. Focus on your local government, tell them what your intake is on here, and back it up with a lot of facts. There's plenty of ammunition out there. You can challenge these people that want to support these motives. Remember, I talked about resolutions in the past too on my episode pertaining to the USA Patriot Act and so forth. I know Broward County has one that was the Patriot Act, which is part of the Domestic Security Enhancement Act, which is part of the Patriot Act, and not supporting the Florida Health Powers Act, which is forced inoculation. We can throw that at them too. It's called principles. When more people learn about these things, it'll be harder for them to control. Okay? So that's why I always tell people, when it comes to your natural born rights, the more you learn, the more you implement, the less you fear. And you got to spread that like fire to everyone else. It's not going to be easy. It won't be. It's not simple. But things are around the corner. They want a technocratic society, global technocracy. A good movie to watch is Rollerball. With James Caan, the original one with James Caan. Okay, definitely watch that one. I seen the remake. I wasn't impressed. It was not the same. So it gives you a glimpse what a technocratic world is. It is not pretty at all. Okay, so always remain vigilant, folks. Nullify. Nullification is the best remedy. That's what Thomas Jefferson once said. All right, my friends, that will be it. I'll thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share us throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, if you send something interesting you want to check out, whatever you do, please send your correspondence to the Quorum. Furthermore, I'll leave the footnotes of this episode on my Spreaker page. If you want to contact me, you can hit me at localluck3@gmail.com or localluck03 at protonmail.com. All right. If you want to do a subject, local third podcast or LL3 podcast, that'd be great. I can understand. That's my recommendation. And if you want to do a donation, you can hit me at paypal.me/local3. Support Epoch Times. Support the folks from the Bob Lewison Alerts, Brandon Smith. Do it. And you know what? You'll feel better about it, okay? All right, folks. I may do a show tomorrow. But if not, Merry Christmas to everyone out there around the world. No matter what your faith is, we need to focus on true peace, security, and spiritual prosperity for every single one of us out there. Okay? Always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.